Dragons Are a Girl's Best Friend, Chapter 7, brought to you from the game room. I jogged over to the man still hawking fireworks to take to the festival tonight. I'll take 2. Oh, and matches, please? I made sure my hand brushed his as he passed them to me. The fireworks were magically enhanced, and if he was the maker as well as the seller, borrowing a little of his magic might come in handy. Of course, as soon as I dropped contact, I would lose most of the power. But the residue lingered for 30 seconds, sometimes an entire minute, depending on the magic, allowing me to continue using it on a much weaker level. Power sparked up my arm. The vendor's magical affinity with the fireworks allowed him to precisely control the ignition timing, vibrancy, duration, and arc of every speck of salt, metal, and gunpowder. It was an oddly specific gift, but he was making good use of it. These fireworks would be something to see. I turned away and used his gift in a feeble imitation to slow down one fuse and speed up the other. The first would buy me some extra time to run in. The second I had only vague ideas for as a last-ditch distraction. I hoped that I would not need. I shoved the ladder into the holster beside my gun. The loose grate Stewie had marked on the map was about half a block away and would be a tight fit for the average human. But that was okay. I wasn't planning on going down there today. I made a lot of noise removing the grate. It was freaking heavy, and I'd have to remember to put it back afterwards. But I wanted my target to wonder at why it was open. I swung my phone light around to make sure there was no one down there, struck a match, and tossed down the firework with the slower fuse. Then I sprinted for the manhole. The bang and crackle of the firework was muffled above ground, but was probably uncomfortably loud where my target was standing. It went off just about when I hoped it would. I ducked my head through the open manhole in time to see a figure silhouetted by a flashlight stalking in the direction of the disturbance. I used only the dim light of my phone screen to illuminate my way as I crept down the ladder and up the 26 paces Stewie had counted. It took me 29, actually, and placed me uncomfortably close to the junction. I'd have to hope that the guy's use of the flashlight would mean I'd spot him before he could spot me. It wasn't hard to find the new addition to the tunnel. The device was about the size of a small generator and bolted into the middle of the floor. But it took me a minute to identify it, because it made no sense. It was an anti-magic device. A big one. Would it even work in Vegas? Their reliability was very hit and miss, depending on their location, like the world's spottiest cell coverage. No one knew why they worked in some geographic areas and not others, although conjecture abounded. Some claimed that it had to do with ley lines. Others, the mineral composition in the soil or bedrock. Weirder concepts included its efficacy being influenced by mysterious, intangible residues from historic events, and pretty much every conspiracy theory ever that could be twisted to suit. Add to the fact that prices for the larger devices were set prohibitively high by the supernaturals, who were the only ones who could make them. And it made it even stranger. But what if the Ken doll crew had gone to so much trouble to first acquire and then install this one with precise GPS coordinates? That must mean I must assume that it would work. But why? Could it be some sort of magic protest designed to go off at the peak of the festival? I couldn't imagine it being part of some sanctioned special effect. Regardless, it was better than a bomb. So why didn't I feel a little more relieved? A swinging beam of light snapped me out of my thoughts. Crap, the light was too close, and I wouldn't make it all the way back to the manhole in time. Most of the way, maybe, but I had a split second to make a decision, and then a few more to act on it. I ripped off one of my shoes and braced a hand against the wall as if to steady myself, just as Ken doll number 5 emerged from the junction. He was definitely part of the matched set. Hello? I called out in my best inebriated party girl impression. At least I was wearing casual clothes instead of a uniform. The man's face, what little I could see of it, crinkled in confusion. I hobbled toward him and kept babbling, hoping to keep that confusion going for as long as possible. Oh, thank goodness that I found someone. I fell down this freaking giant hole and I hurt my ankle and I don't think I can get up and it's dark and I'm so confused. I was 2 yards away when the man went for his gun. His expression was a little uncertain, but he was well trained enough that he'd been carrying the flashlight in his non-dominant hand so he wouldn't have to fumble. I feigned a drunken stumble and lunged forward. He must have 100% decided I was a shoot. He mustn't have 100% decided I was a shoot-to-kill threat, because instead of snatching up the gun and pulling the trigger, he hesitated. Just long enough for me to snatch it instead, bounce off his hard abdominal muscles to open up some space between us, and aim the barrel at his center of mass. Which was just as well, because the magic I'd managed to steal from him was useless. Well, useless unless I wanted to teach a goldfish how to do some tricks. No wonder he focused on his physical prowess. Hands up where I can see them, I demanded. That's right, good. Now, I recommend that you don't make any sudden moves. I have been shooting since I was 8. If I had backup, I'd risk getting close to pat him down and retrieve my discarded shoe while I was at it. But he had about 80 pounds of muscled weight on me, and I couldn't take the chance. Instead, I backed up, putting enough distance between us that he couldn't lunge for the gun. I'm going to make a phone call, I informed him. You just stay nice and still and no one needs to get hurt. Keeping the gun trained on his torso, I fumbled for my phone and went to dial 911 and then stopped. Oh, this was going to take some explaining. I called a different number instead. I'm not changing my mind, Captain Gadsden growled when he answered the phone. Yes, sir. That's not what this is about. I have a situation here and I need backup. Except I was suspended. I mean, I need a unit. I filled him in on the details. My suspect turned his head a fraction and I readied myself for sudden moves, but he was only checking his watch. The increased tension in his stance after seeing his watch, however, was not particularly reassuring. The captain didn't sound any happier than the guy I was holding at gunpoint, but by the time I finished my explanation, 3 units were already on their way. One to rescue me, the other to the first location Stewie had told me about, and a third to track down the utility truck. As soon as I hung up, Ken doll number 5 started talking. Hey, look, I'm cooperating, so just let me stand over there. He gestured to the tunnel behind me with his chin. And I'll keep cooperating. I resisted glancing behind me. How about you share first, and then I'll think about it. Tell me what's going on. He shook his head. No, you're too late. It's impossible to stop it now. His escalating tension suggested that he believed it. But trust me, we both want to be on that side of the device when it happens. My stomach was twisting. Why? What was I missing? And how many would die because I was missing it? Not having his fish persuasion magic shouldn't be making him so edgy. So what in the world was happening? Have you tampered with the device somehow? Had I been wrong about what it was? But a bomb wasn't about to explode in only one direction, was it? Regardless, I backed up an extra couple of steps so that I was over the line. He shook his head again, and the movement was jerky with strain. There isn't time to explain everything first. He glanced at his watch again, and a note of pleading entered his tone. Come on, lady, please. My heart thudded in my ears as I tried to figure out what the heck was going on and what on earth I could do about it. I wanted to study the device at my feet, but I couldn't take my attention off the man in front of me. Hell, maybe all this was just an act, and that was exactly what he was hoping for. Besides, I had zero experience with anti-magic devices. Oh, I wished again for Aurelis, who seemed to know something about everything. She's a little know-it-all. The faint sound of police sirens drifted down to us in the tunnel, and Ken doll number 5 shifted his weight again. I made my voice as hard as I could and raised the gun a fraction. I wouldn't do that if I were you. But whatever the guy was afraid of, it was not me. His watch began to beep. Behind me, a familiar voice asked, "Aren't you supposed to be at your dad's party right now?" I glanced back instinctively, and Ken doll used my moment of distraction to start running. Not toward me in the alleged line, likely thanks to the formidable dragon who'd just thrust her head through the manhole, but away toward the junction. I hesitated for half a second, then leaped into pursuit, just as something magical burst into existence and knocked me on my ass. Ooh. What do you think it is? Oh, I can't wait. We better hurry and get to chapter 8.